My F49 cousin, F23, asked my daughter, F16, to perform at her wedding reception, but became bitter upon seeing the positive reception to her act. She has since posted about her online, and my daughter is considering quitting.
History 1.
I hope this is okay to share here. The reason I'm posting is because of my daughter who's been hurting in the aftermath of a recent performance. I'm sorry in advance for how long this turned out, but any advice from fellow aerialists would be greatly appreciated. My cousin Dana, not real name, had her wedding 2 weeks ago, and she asked if my daughter could perform at her reception. My daughter, Jane, also fake name, has practiced Silks/Lyra for the past few years at a nearby circus studio, and she's also performed with Slash through the studio at small gigs. She hopes to continue into adulthood and become a professional teacher, but this recent incident has shaken her confidence. She has a private Instagram to document her progress/performances. And I only post certain performances on my Facebook, her first gig with the studio and her first recital to name a few we're proud of. Some of our relatives saw her performances through my socials, and they watched her perform at her studio's Christmas recital when we hosted Christmas at our home a few years back, something that surprised her when they visited early to see her. I love how they coordinated that, and Jane said it was her loudest cheering section to date. Dana was one of the relatives who came up early to see her Christmas recital, and she's always been super supportive. She asked me if Jane would be willing to perform at the reception, and I asked on her behalf. Jane was honored and excited when I did. And we already had a portable rig for her too, though we ended up renting a taller one from her studio. Dana got the idea from a YouTube video featuring an aerialist who performed at a wedding reception, and she showed us while requesting white silks and a white outfit. We scoped out the venue and purchased white silks along with a white costume that Dana approved of, and Jane was really excited throughout. Jane even worked on choreography to a song that Dana requested, and she put a lot of time into it, even asking one of her coaches to help her with it. Dana insisted on paying her for the gig despite Jane not expecting to be paid, and she paid her a few hundred. However, Dana's had a change of heart. Jane received a standing ovation after her performance that surprised her, but we didn't know anything was wrong until Dana went on Facebook a few days later. Dana said she didn't approve of the outfit Jane wore and that she specifically told her to not wear white. She also said my husband and I pressured her to have Jane perform and that the performance gave off an unclassy vibe, lies that my husband and I couldn't believe. We sent Dana numerous costume links, and we purchased the one she liked. There was also nothing wrong with Jane's performance. Dana was one of the people cheering afterward. Jane received nothing but compliments afterward, but I'm disgusted that she had to see that post after all the work she put into it. The post also had comments disabled for what it's worth. I called Dana to confront her about the lies, but she didn't pick up numerous calls. I then called her parents who, like us, had received messages about her post, and they said that Dana was wrong. They apologized on her behalf and said they were also disgusted. Dana's mom also said that Dana vented to her before making her post a few days after the reception. Dana told her she regretted asking Jane to perform given the attention, compliments and cheers she received for it. Her mom also said that she felt upstaged with Jane wearing white and having to hear how good she was. Dana's parents tried to call her after she made her post, but she didn't answer after their previous conversation ended with her parents telling her she shouldn't be bitter because she specifically asked Jane to perform. Dana's parents reported the post along with us/others, and we've told the truth to those who reached out along with a post to explain our side/stand up for Jane. We have text proof of sending costume links that Dana chose from. Dana's parents also requested to talk to Jane on the phone to apologize for Dana's behavior, and my husband and I told Jane that Dana was wrong, and that we'll be distancing ourselves from Dana permanently. Dana's parents were surprised at her behavior, and we were too having seen her grow up. Granted, we only see extended family for Thanksgiving and Christmas because we live far, but other relatives were surprised too as it seemed to come from left field. Maybe there's a side of Dana we'll never know from our limited holiday/milestone interactions, but our focus is Jane. We've tried to cheer Jane up by offering to take her to dinner among other activities, but she's been hurting, which is why I'm here. Jane hasn't practiced, at home or the studio, since the reception, and I don't want to invade her space at her studio by asking/telling anyone there, in case she doesn't want anyone to know. She asked me to return the white silks and costume after being so excited to receive them. She also said she's going to take an extended break from Ariel to reconsider if she wants to continue. Aside from Ariel, she's taken a break from seeing non-Ariel friends too, choosing to pretty much keep to herself. We would appreciate any advice from fellow aerialists on how to lift her spirits. We reminded her of how we're proud of her, along with the many compliments she received, but she's asked for space and to not talk about it. We're going to respect that and let time do its thing, but we'll consider any advice from other aerialists who can relate to the time and work she put in. Sorry for this being so long, but we appreciate anyone who read and takes the time to reply.
History 2.
AITA for doing childproofing for my in-laws visit? I'm 26, F, and my husband is 29, M. We've been married for 5 years and moved to Berlin right after marriage since we both found really well-paying jobs. Meanwhile, both of our families, parents, siblings, etc., still live back in Greece, and we usually visit occasionally. Now, my husband and I don't have any children and don't plan to have any. We enjoy buying expensive things and experiencing things we never got to as children, such as nice furniture in our home, going to exotic restaurants with friends, traveling, hobbies, and generally just enjoying our lives together exactly the way they are. However, my husband's family is very traditional, and every married couple is expected to have at least one child. This time, my husband invited my brother-in-law, Dale, and sister-in-law, Sale, to visit us with their 3-year-old son for 2 weeks. This would be the first time they've traveled with their son and the first time we would be hosting our nephew at our home. Now, our nephew is known to be going through the terrible twos and has been throwing tantrums and breaking things lately, so I did some childproofing in our home a day before my in-laws were due to arrive. I removed all the glass and ceramic decor. I swapped out our linen tablecloth for a plastic one. I locked up our intoxication devices. I also covered our sofas with plush fabric covers. Our sofa fabric is white cashmere, because our nephew likes to snack while watching TV. And we can always take it outside and dust off food crumbs. I also changed my maid's schedule to come in 5 days a week instead of 3 so she can help prep breakfast and make sure the house is tidy. However, when my husband saw all of my changes, he got upset. He told me he felt that I was preparing our house as if we were hosting messy and uncivilized people. He asked why I don't make these changes when our friends in Berlin who have kids come over for dinner. He also said that he's never seen our friends make these sorts of changes in their own homes for their kids. I don't understand this comparison at all. Coming over for dinner for 3 hours and staying at a place for a couple of weeks is very different. And we've visited our in-laws enough to see how chaotic their home can get, to the point where my BIL and Sale keep mostly plastic items in their homes for convenience. This situation has caused some tension between my husband and me, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance being a good host and protecting our home from potential damage.
History 3.
New and final update. I'm the kid of one of those traveling RV families online and I hate them for it every day. My parents decided when I was only around 7 years old, far too young to get an opinion on anything, to pack us up and move into an RV to travel around the US. My dad works online and my mom makes content online. She's not huge by any means, but big enough that we get recognized sometimes and big enough that I've had a camera shoved in my face for as long as I can remember. For my privacy's sake, I won't say anything else on that, and I'm using a throwaway account because I've gotten enough attention already, and I'm sick of it. I sleep in a tiny bunk bed that I outgrew years ago, and the other bunk is the only space I have to put anything I own. I don't even have a room, just a curtain. And thank God I'm an only child, or else I would have to share the small space I have already. I was homeschooled for most of my education and then switched to online school at my own insistence for high school. I'm an 18-year-old girl. I don't have a single friend in person because the longest I've ever stayed anywhere is a month. I don't have a job and no way to get one because of not being stationary unless I find one online, which also means I have no way to move out and get away from them. I've had conversations with them about all of this countless times, and they are so delusional and genuinely believe that a nomadic existence is the best way to live, so why would I ever need anything else? I hate them for treating me like some pet they can just drag along in their plans rather than their child. I hate traveling, I don't like heat, I hate dealing with bugs, and I'm so sick of hiking. I can't wait for the day that I finally figure out a way to get away from them with their morning hikes and cameras in my face. I've traveled around the US, yeah, but God forbid I want to have a normal life, go to college, or maybe even make some friends. That's asking too much.
History 4.
I, 27F, met my GF, 27F, at a funeral. Parents want us to break up. My grandfather died earlier this year, a disorder he'd been battling for years, not COVID, and 3 months ago we had a socially distanced funeral and wake for him. While there, I met Kelly and really hit it off with her. Kelly's grandfather had been my grandpa's best friend, and Kelly's dad and my mom had grown up as good friends until they moved away from each other and married other people. Kelly and I had never met before, and after dating for a few months, we decided to go public. We thought our parents would be thrilled. Wrong. My mom lost her shit at me, screaming that Kelly's dad was practically her brother and I was basically dating my cousin. She also said that dating someone I met at a funeral was super inappropriate and a disgrace to my grandfather's memory. Kelly's parents have been telling her basically the same thing. Kelly and I are both really confused. My mom and her dad moved away before either of us were born, and the whole point of the wake, my family is extremely Irish, was to drink and celebrate my grandfather's memory. Is there some kind of taboo I'm breaking that I'd never heard of? I like Kelly a lot, but I'm not sure it's worth this kind of shitstorm. My family's never reacted like this to any other girl I've dated.
History 5.
Tafu got drunk at a Christmas party and gave her my room key. Last week I went to my company's Christmas party, a very fancy event for the 800 staff, with an open bar all night. At around 2 a.m., I was at the bar chatting with the head of HR. She mentioned needing to get a taxi to go home, and since I was already well on my way, I slipped her my spare room key, gave her my room number, and said my bed is big enough. Then I walked away. A bit later, she approached me laughing, saying it's probably a bit unprofessional for her to sleep over. I was shocked at first because I couldn't remember what I did. Today I went back to work, forgetting about the incident, until a good friend asked if I had been fired yet, which brought it all back. Do I regret it? Definitely not, and I would probably do it again.
History 6.
My 28F, BF, 30M, is having some kind of meltdown after finding out my friend's 36F age. I've been dating my boyfriend Mike, fake name, for about 4 months, and everything has been great up until now. This post is going to make Mike sound kind of odd, but up until now, he's been the nicest, most laid-back guy I've ever dated. About a week ago, I was on a Zoom call with 2 of my friends, who we will call Annie and Sarah. Sarah is 27, Annie is 36. I was talking to Annie and Sarah, and Mike leaned over my shoulder to say hello. Because of the pandemic, he hasn't met either of them in person yet, and it was his first time actually meeting Annie at all. I wanted him to get to know my friends a bit, so I invited him to sit next to me and stick around. Sarah was talking about her dating woes and how the pandemic has made it harder to date than ever. Mike made this weird joke about how Sarah needs to find a guy quick because at 30, she's going to hit the wall, and no man will want her anymore. He said it in a joking voice, but both Annie and Sarah looked weirded out. I was too, to be honest. Mike's never said anything like that before. I guess Mike picked up on the awkwardness because he started trying to explain himself and started saying all this stuff about how women age like milk, and it's not the same for guys, and men tend to date younger because after 30, they hold all the cards and can pick and choose. Annie said, I haven't had any trouble meeting men, and Mike said, just wait until you hit 30 and lose your looks, it's all downhill from there. Annie just kind of laughed, and I had to tell Mike that she's 36. And obviously hasn't lost her looks if he's mistaking her for a 20-something. I said it kind of jokingly, but Mike just went silent and then walked off into my bedroom and slammed the door. That night and ever since then, he's been very moody and short with me, and keeps making passive-aggressive comments about how I'm always against him and never have his back. We've never even had an argument before this, so I don't know where that's coming from. I've tried to bring up the Annie thing several times, and he either clams up and refuses to talk about it or turns it back into me, Annie, and Sarah ganging up on him and bullying him. Which I don't think any of us did. The rest of the time, he's just very short with me and keeps picking fights over tiny, silly things like my tone of voice being wrong. What do I do here? I really want to talk about what happened and about his views on women and men and aging because that's kind of concerning. I don't understand why my sweet, cool boyfriend has suddenly transformed into this odd person because he got politely corrected once. How should I solve this?
History 7.
My 42F husband, 42M, has informed me he intends to go on a gaycation with his BIL, 35M, in Ibiza. How do I handle this? So my husband and I have been happily married for about 16 years, give or take. We both have stable careers, a good family life, and are fairly fortunate despite the cost of living rising in the UK right now. We have 2 boys, 15 and 10, and up until this Sunday, thought we had it pretty good. We argue sometimes, of course, but it never gets too bad, and we have a pretty decent sex life with some exploration, but I won't get into that. Long and short is, on Sunday, just after I dropped our boys off at their friends', my husband asked me if we had the house alone and more importantly, if I had a minute. I said yes, and he sat me down, then got out this printed poster for some sort of event and started explaining to me the concept of a gaycation. He explained that it's where straight men go somewhere with sun, sand, and booze and become gay for the duration of the trip, but that's fine because it doesn't actually count, because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. I was just completely silent and mortified, even more so when he said he was looking into booking a trip to Ibiza next year with his brother-in-law, his sister's husband, to experience it for himself. When he finally let me speak, I just said, I need him to be clear with me, is he gay? Because if yes, that's okay, but we need to figure out what happens going forward. I didn't let myself get angry or upset, I was just stunned. He swore up and down that he's not gay and he's 100% attracted to women and, of course, still loves me and our boys. So I said, well, do you think you're bi maybe? And he got very defensive, saying how I need to drop the accusations and that this is the beauty of the gaycation. It allows straight men to experience gayness without actually being gay, and how it's like going to an aquarium. And again, he was adamant he doesn't find men's bodies or genitalia exciting at all, but he needs to experience this apparently. I said, well, I'm really not comfortable because even if he was bi, this would be explicitly cheating on me, and he got angry and reiterated he's not, because that's the beauty of the gaycation, etc. I just had enough and left the room. I ignored him for the rest of the day, but we spoke at tea where I again asked him, why does he want to do this so bad if he's not gay? He said how he's interested in how gay men's lives differ from straight men's, and that unfortunately, once the gaycation begins, it's simply impossible for a man to resist, and he must surrender himself mind, body, and soul to the gaycation or be destroyed. I really can't put into words how surreal it was because he was speaking so matter-of-factly, and he again insists this is a thing that straight men do all the time and how he's actually doing it a bit late. I just said to him if he has any love for me, then he can't go ahead with this, and if he does, the marriage will be dead. We didn't speak any more after that. Since then, he's mentioned no more of it, but somehow, and this is what scares me a lot too, that decision genuinely seems to be tearing him up. He didn't go into work on Monday, and only went in half a day yesterday, because he told them he just felt too ill, and he just looks distraught every time I see him. I really don't think he's wholly gay, though I can absolutely believe he's bi, but I'd rather we talked about that in a healthy way rather than this incredibly weird denialism around going on a trip to Ibiza. Has anyone known straight guys to do this, and come back and just go back to being straight? Like surely that can't be a thing that happens. I'm so out of my depth here, and I just don't know how to even initiate the conversation. For the record, I also haven't mentioned it to his sister yet. I don't know how I'd even break it to her. Thanks for any help, I just don't even want to think, so being able to get this out there has helped even just a little bit.
History 8.
HR won't do anything about a coworker who's angry about my weight loss. I just came back to work after a month-long emergency medical leave. The TLDR is that after a decade of medical gaslighting, a new doctor ordered an emergency MRI during a routine visit and discovered a mass in my abdomen. I was rushed into surgery within 24 hours. I ended up having an 18-pound benign tumor pressing on my vital organs, and I was about a week away from multiple organ failure. I'm lucky to be alive, and time will tell if I have any lasting organ damage, but right now everything is fine. Mentally I'm struggling with a few things, but the only outwardly noticeable impact is that I've gone from a size 20 to a size 8. Nobody on my medical team anticipated a change this drastic, but I'm healthy and lucky. I was expecting to get a lot of questions from my coworkers because curiosity exists. I had a basic emergency surgery, but I'm fine now, answered that almost everyone accepted but one coworker who I hardly speak to, Aubrey. On my first day back to work, Aubrey came up to me and said, I wish you had come to me to lose the weight instead of resorting to such drastic measures. You're going to gain it all back, you know. I'll be waiting. I was aware of Aubrey's reputation, but since we never worked together, I didn't think it would be an issue. She's one of those people who think they're a fitness expert and calls herself a health coach, nothing to do with the company we work for. She has a reputation for giving out unsolicited and incorrect health advice and is always commenting on people's food choices. I was speechless when she asked why I opted to get butchered instead of putting in the hard work to lose the weight. There's nothing wrong with someone choosing surgical weight loss options, but that's not what happened to me, and I really resented her aggressive attitude / spreading rumors. During my second week back, she came by my office at the end of the day in athletic gear, offering to go with me if I was too afraid to go to the gym alone. At the time, I wasn't even cleared to lift my kid, do laundry, or climb a flight of stairs, let alone go to the gym with her. I don't remember what I said to her, but she left saying I'd gain the weight back because I'm lazy. The next day, Aubrey ranted angrily about me in a meeting I wasn't in, missed it for a follow-up, ironically. I don't know everything that was said, but the gist was that if I can't dedicate myself to weight loss, I obviously can't see my work obligations through. HR called for a red flag mediation. At our company, mediation can go against your bonus opportunities for the year. I have no idea why I'm in mediation when she's the one being a problem. At the mediation, Aubrey stated that she was triggered by my new body and I should have thought of other people's feelings and warned her before my surgery. I hardly had time to warn my husband and get my kid out of daycare. I don't owe Aubrey anything. I have empathy that she's obviously struggling, but that does not excuse her behavior. HR said that while they can't ask me to explain my medical history, it might clear the air if I told her what kind of surgery I had and why. I said I wasn't obligated to share my medical information with anyone and that Aubrey having bad coping skills doesn't entitle her to a coworker's personal health information. Their response was kind of, well, then we can't stop her from bullying you. After Thanksgiving, my doctor helped me put in ADA accommodation paperwork so I could work from home. I was having some mild complications from surgery but also to avoid Aubrey. This company hates remote work, so they're really not happy. Aubrey still emails me workout videos and diet plans, and when I forward them to HR their responses, noted. Do you know when you're coming back to the office? I've been thinking about escalating this to corporate with an employment lawyer. Is that overkill? I'm still in a sensitive place after my surgery and I have no energy for this, especially since Aubrey is fixated on weight loss, which was the primary way doctors gaslit me for years. I've been with this company for 5 years and I'm just exhausted and disappointed in how they're handling this, and I want it over yesterday. All I have to say for this update is hold on to your banana pants. I saw a lot of comments asking where management was in all this, so I'll address that first. My boss, George, was getting ready to retire while this was going on. George is roughly my grandfather's age. So this entire situation bewildered both him and his replacement, who he was training at the time. Both of them met with Aubrey's boss, because believe me, I was documenting everything she did from the jump, and they all assured me that Aubrey would be dealt with. None of them recommended the red flag mediation. That was HR's idea. I was given details of the meeting where Aubrey ranted about me, and it was horrible, but apparently Aubrey was asked to leave by her own boss while several other employees told her to stop, so managerially and in the office in general, people were trying to rein her in from many different angles. HR is where the ball dropped, and dropped hard. This company just has a poor HR structure and bad entry to mid-level HR. When Aubrey's boss referred her to HR regarding her negative behavior, HR took it upon themselves to consider it a mediation situation, which, remember, at our company can go against your bonus for the year, despite communication from George, his replacement, and Aubrey's boss saying I wasn't in the wrong. When George found out about this, he spoke to the HR generalist's manager, who said that my absence probably caused a lot of strain and extra work for Aubrey when Aubrey's not even credentialed to do what I do. Management made a point to tell me how baffled and upset they were with HR's handling of the situation every time something came up. My company mentor was also a huge support during this time until she decided to take another job elsewhere. When my doctor extended my ADA work from home accommodation a second time, HR responded by telling me my attendance was a concern. I emailed their boss's boss, the HR director, and asked for clarification. He said I hadn't come into the office, so of course my attendance was a problem. I reiterated I had medical documentation stating that if WFH wasn't available then they could refer to the FMLA documentation my medical team also sent. He replied that medical documentation, including both FMLA and ADA reasonable accommodations, doesn't hold much weight with the company. That's when I got a lawyer. Aubrey as a problem kind of drifted to the background when HR started their medical documentation doesn't matter campaign. On my lawyer's recommendation, I contacted the HR executive team, which is where this whole cursed situation came to light. I called the chief HR officer, which for my company is going over like 5 people's heads, but I did it with George's and my new boss's blessings, who was the head of HR, and asked why my attendance was an issue when I had reasonable ADA documentation. She had no idea what I was talking about, so I filled her in on all of it, including the mediation meeting and Aubrey's harassment and the HR director, her direct report, saying medical documentation didn't hold any weight with the company. She was speechless and asked to meet with me and my lawyer as soon as possible. My lawyer hardly had to do anything during the meeting because the CHRO was horrified at everything I told her. I've never actually seen steam come out of someone's ears. But if it was physically possible, it would have happened here. My lawyer didn't need to say a word but just nodded and smiled when the CHRO offered an extended paid medical leave so I could handle my recovery and said Aubrey constantly sending me fitness plans would be dealt with swiftly. I didn't hear anything out of Aubrey for a long time, but I did hear through some gossip channels that the HR staff involved in the red flag meeting / threatening to write me up were let go. Aubrey wasn't fired because they believe she was misled by HR, so I understand that part even if I don't agree with it, but she was on a tight PIP for a while. Then she showed up at my house. Now we move from banana pants to full-on banana ensemble. I'm still on leave and out of the blue, Aubrey showed up at my door on a weekend with 2 other women in tow and the commenters guessed it, she's in very deep with an MLM, or maybe a cult, I can't be sure at this point. Aubrey came over to demonstrate some workout techniques and give me some diet supplement samples and discuss a career opportunity because she was worried about my physical and professional health. She didn't make it past my mother-in-law, who has been a godsend right now. My mother-in-law made it clear where Aubrey could stick her demonstration and they left in a hurry. I notified my lawyer and the CHRO and suffice it to say, Aubrey is now a full-time wellness coach. I'm happy I went with my gut and got a lawyer because the company has changed so drastically over the last year with the toxic HR department encouraging behavior like Aubrey's and spreading false information about medical leave and time off, the company is almost unrecognizable. Also with my boss and mentor both gone.
History 9.
I'm a millionaire and it cost me everything. 37M recently hit this milestone after committing myself to my career for the last 15 years. I thought just focus on you, build the future you're envisioning and the rest will fall into place. Man, was I wrong. The only thing I have is my career. I've completely lost myself along the way. I'm sitting alone in my apartment as the holiday weekend gets underway, watching the city come to life as I feel I slowly succumb to the opposite force. My friends are all with their families and loved ones, most have small children of their own. Everyone is rightfully consumed with their family and close friends. I just don't fit in most of those settings anymore. I could absolutely go out on my own. So I'm not throwing a pity party, it just doesn't sound appealing to me. I've given up my hobbies as I never had time for them in the last decade, or they no longer interest me. I am unable to find love. Some blame is certainly my own in this category, but still feels like it's been a gauntlet. And now most of the available women my age have baggage, kids, etc. Not exactly exciting. My friends who I grew up with look at me differently now that I'm successful. There is resentment. I went to intense graduate school and post-grad training during my 20s and early 30s. I grew apart from and lost touch with many good friends. I used to be incredibly extroverted and could talk to a wall. Now, not only does small talk and interacting with people seem pointless, I've realized I can barely keep a conversation anymore. Interaction with people is a task now, and usually a disappointing or at best unremarkable occurrence in my day. I'm a shell of my former self. I don't have anything to offer anyone other than money. And that's a worse feeling than having no money, which I've also experienced. In my tireless journey for success, I lost my humanity, and there is no worse poverty to experience than that of connection. I hope this finds you well, and I implore you to nurture your connections. Love your family and spouse. Be present with the ones that matter. Lean into your friendships. There is no higher calling as a human than to brighten the world of those you love. That's real wealth. In a world that's obsessed with status and appearance, achievement and comparison, chasing these vague axioms will lead to a life of emptiness and regret. Be thankful for what you have and for those you love. It's the only currency that matters.